Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing tonight? How are you today? How are you? Good evening, good evening, good evening. If you're joining me live, put a heart in the comments, say hello, tell me where you are joining in from. It'll be nice to know where we are all joining in from today. So, put a heart in the comments, say where you're joining us from, live from Lagos, from Ibadan, live from America, wherever it may be. It'll be nice to know. Okay, so let's go right into our life today. Today, we're going to be looking at a very interesting topic, something that I think is really, really important. And I think it's one of the things that, affects the way we show up every day. Um, and I know that in our different ways, we want to be able to show up to the best of our abilities. Everybody wants to put their best foot forward. Everybody wants to show up right. So let me start by asking us a slightly uncomfortable question. I'm sure that if I took your phone right now and checked the operating system, whether you're using an Android or an Apple phone or an iPhone, I could tell whether your phone needs an update or not. But what if I checked you? What if we're able to check how you think? What if we're able to check how you react to situations? What if we're able to check your trust level for people that you relate with? And it's interesting that I talk about trust because I just had a conversation with someone before I jumped onto this live, about trust and how the person was talking about having to learn how to trust slowly and not rush into trusting people. So, what if I checked your trust level? What if I checked how you communicate? What if I checked what it is that you tolerate in your relationships and what kind of boundaries have you set? Would your internal operating system need an update? Because when I look at some of us as adults, people I relate with on a day to day basis, clients that come through my doors, family members, people that you meet on the streets, people I meet on the shops. And I look at adults just in relating with them on whatever level, platonic level, intimate level, friendship level, on whatever level. I look at so many adults and I see that the software that is downloaded, the software that they're using to operate as adults, was a software that was downloaded in them as children. And that software has not been updated. And then we wonder why, sometimes we overthink things, or sometimes we panic when somebody takes too long to reply a message. Or sometimes we wonder why we tolerate disrespect, or why we attract the same unhealthy patterns over and over again. So tonight, let's talk about what is your internal operating system. And for those of you who may not know, we are joining us for the first time. My name is Modoni, and tonight's conversation is especially for you, the young adults, people who are really planning to get into wholesome and healthy relationships, or people who might say, "Oh, I'm in a relationship, but I think, there are certain things that I might be doing wrong and I want to begin to do right." And so that's what our conversation is going to be about today. So if you're here and you're ready to jump into the conversation, give me a thumbs up and let me see those that are ready to go. So, like I said earlier on, our phones do have operating systems, and it's those operating systems within our phones that helps the phone to function. It's what helps our apps to update when they need to be updated. It's what keeps the bugs away from our phones or from our systems. And human beings are actually no different. Our internal operating system refers to things like our beliefs, our assumptions, our emotional programming, patterns that we have learned over time and are quietly running in the background. And this is the interesting thing about operating systems, is that they are running in the background. So sometimes we're not even aware of how much these things that have been there since childhood are still affecting us as adults. And it influences how you love. It influences the kind of communication that you have. It influences the kind of people that you choose to be in a relationship with. It influences whether you feel safe with a guy or you feel, comfortable being in a relationship with a lady. It influences everything that we do. It actually even influences the relationship that we have with God. Interestingly, I didn't even realize, of course, I didn't know what my pastor was going to preach about today, but talking today, he was, talking about the perspective that we have to things and how some people struggle to see God as a loving father because they never had a loving biological physical father growing up. And I had a friend, I once knew someone like that. I had a friend who experienced that kind of a situation as well. And I'm sure there might be a number of you who are listening to me right now who maybe you went through a childhood where your father was not loving, he wasn't there. And so you find it difficult to grasp how loving God says he is and how loving he can be. That's what we mean by our internal operating system. It's a programming, it's a conditioning that has happened over the years, things that have happened to us when we were children. And those operating systems, those software that are within us, some of them have not been updated. Some of them need to be thrown out. Sometimes when you're looking through your phone and you're like, this app, I've not used you in 6 months, I've not used you in 2 years, delete because you no longer need it. There are some apps in our operating system that we need to delete. So let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Um, so let's take what are some of these things that can show up in our everyday lives to know that the apps in our operating system need updating. Imagine you send someone a message and the person does not reply your text for 3 hours. One person could think, oh, okay, they're probably busy. Another person could think, maybe this person is beginning to lose interest in me. Another person says to themselves, oh, I knew it. People always leave. That's how they always behave. They will say they're interested. And then after a few days, a few weeks, they've disappeared. All of these three different perspectives, same event, but because they are different operating systems are, you know, running in these three people, you have three completely different perspectives and three completely different reactions to one same event. And you might think, oh, but that's a really basic thing, but it's not because that can be magnified to different areas of our lives. And people don't always react to reality. Sometimes they react to programming. I'll say that again. We don't always react to reality. Sometimes we react to programming. Sometimes we react to conditioning. There might be some of you on the call tonight who have children. Think about some of the things that you have conditioned your children to do. You've conditioned them to maybe, let's say, you wake up at 5 a.m. every day. You do your devotion at 5:30. you do your house chores at 6 o'clock, and then you get ready for school. And they have been conditioned in this manner. And then it also almost becomes like, they're almost operating on autopilot. So that even when, they're in a situation where maybe, for example, they're on holiday, because they might be in that reality of, oh, this is holiday, but because they have been programmed and conditioned to behave in a certain way every day of their lives, they might still wake up like that on a holiday and, do the same things and programming. And this is a very basic example that I've used. But I also believe that it can be, used in different aspects of our lives. Because a situation happens, you call someone, they don't pick up, and they don't return your call for 3 hours. And then you begin to catastrophize and begin to think all sorts of things and paint all sorts of pictures as to how, oh, maybe the person does not like you anymore, or maybe the person is no longer interested, or maybe she's with someone else, or maybe he's, and then you begin to give yourself some serious heartache. So where did this thing about, operating systems come from? This is important because the truth is that nobody woke up one morning and randomly developed trust issues. No. Nobody woke up one morning and then developed the inability to love. Nobody wakes up one morning and gets into a relationship thinking that this relationship is going to end up on the rocks. Nobody really does that. But there are things that have shaped our operating system over the years that has now brought people to have trust issues, that have brought people to um, find it difficult to love, that have brought people to being struggling with fidelity, that have brought people to struggling with being faithful, and all sorts of things. All sorts of things. Things that people go through in their childhood, not feeling safe, not feeling heard, being emotionally, injured, not having any self-efficacy, not being able to, not having any congruence between who they are at the moment and who they see themselves to be. There's a disparity. There's no agreement within themselves as to their identity and who they are. And all of this starts from childhood. The researchers have actually said that a human being is formed between the ages of 0 and 7. After the age of 7, everything else that happens in the life of that human being is hinged on what was deposited between the ages of 0 and 7. And I think it was recently I heard that there's a Jewish saying that says, give me a person for 7 years and I'll show you who that person will be for the rest of their lives. Because in those 7 years, they will have done so much impact in that person to the point where they are formed for the rest of their lives. So the things that they impart into that child, the words that they use, the encouragement, or maybe discouragement, the things they use to either build the person up or bring the person down, whether negative or positive, whatever it is, once you are able to do it in that first 7 years, then you have formed the life of that person going forward. Family dynamics is another thing that forms our operating systems. So did you grow up in a house where everybody shouts? it's always a shouting match. Everything is a shouting match from um, you know, meal time to sending on errands to asking questions, whatever it is, everybody is always shouting. And then you decide to date a person who has been brought up in a family where they always used bedroom voice whenever they're in their house. Everybody talks in hushed tones. Then the two of you come together and you want to have a relationship. And when you're talking, one person's voice is always so loud and shouting, and the other person is wondering, what's wrong with you? Why can't you talk softly? And you might think that this is a, oh, you might think, oh, okay, they might be able to change. But they just might not be, because for one, they might not even realize, the person who shouts might not even realize they're shouting. They've been so used to it, it has become norm. It has become second nature. It has become second nature. So they don't even know they're shouting. They're just going on and keeping on and doing what it is that they want to do, not knowing whether this is affecting anybody or not. Or you grew up in a family where instability was the order of the day. Instability in physiological needs, instability in provision, instability in emotions. Everything about your family was unstable. There was nothing that you could look to your family and say, if I need this, I'm guaranteed that I'll get it. And then you grow up with that sense of instability. You get into a relationship, and for you, it has become normal. And so you meet someone tomorrow, and there's nothing that person can do to make you feel okay. Because as far as you're concerned, family doesn't make you feel loved. Family doesn't make you feel safe. Family never makes you feel, never brings stability into your life. As far as you're concerned, family and instability are synonymous. But yet you want to be in a relationship. Yet you want to get married. How do you think your marriage is going to function when one person believes that family and instability are synonymous? Then of course you're going to get into a relationship and build an unstable family. As far as you're concerned, everything in that family, you're going to give instability as well. And you might be like, oh no, that's not true. I believe that, I'm a changed person. I believe that, I know better. I want to have a happy home. But this is why it is called programming. This is why it is called an operating system. This is the reason why we say it's something that is happening in the background that you're not even aware of most times, because you unconsciously normalize these things. They have become second nature. You're operating on autopilot. And sometimes you might not even be able to identify it. As I'm talking right now, some of you might be thinking to yourself, do I really experience this? Is this something that happens to me? And it might take sitting down with somebody to help you actually analyze things and break things down. Some of you might be showing up today as people who are not confident, people who cannot, hold their own, people who are not able to, have conversations with people. You just lack the ability to stand up for yourself, and you wonder, where it came from. But if you begin to look back at your growing up, if you begin to look back at your history, and then we begin to find things where, for example, you are always talked down on and told that you can never amount to much or to anything for that matter, and you are told that you're good for nothing, and you are told that nothing good can come out of you, then you're going to grow up as a person who is not confident. You wouldn't, it becomes unconscious unless you take drastic, intentional steps to break out. But to be able to break out, you even need to know that it exists. And that's usually the challenge. The challenge is first of all finding that this software needs to be either deleted or updated. But do you even know the software? That's the first question. Do you know the software? And I think for me, that's one of the things that, I'm so big on with the people that I work with, is first and foremost being able to identify what those issues are. Because I've had so many clients, and I kid you not, guys, I've had so many people come to my counseling table and they say, oh, this is what they need help with. This is what, and they, list out the things that they believe they need help with. And by the time we start, those are not the issues. Because a lot of times we look at things from surface level. We don't really go down deep into the roots. In fact, I've had clients who say to me that no, they don't like to sit down and think too much about things that are going on deep down inside them. Because over the years, they've just suppressed and suppressed and suppressed and said, look, these things are not important, just keep them there. But you are suppressing them, but they're affecting your everyday moves, everyday life, everyday decisions, especially in your relationships. Pain teaches us lessons, and sometimes unhealthy ones, because when pain is left there in our hearts without receiving healing, they teach you how to do things in ways that may be unhealthy, both for you and for the people that you're doing it to. So, what is one belief about relationships you think you learned growing up? Whether from your parents, whether from relatives around you. What is that one thing that you believe about relationships that you learned when you were growing up? I've met people who learned that relationships, you can never trust a man. All men are cheats. And then I asked her, so why did you marry one? Why did you marry one? If you believe that all men are going to cheat, why did you marry one? And it was just like, oh well, because I didn't think that I had a choice. I mean, you have to, you have to be married at the end of the day. So what would I do? So there are things that we go through. There are things that we have learned about relationships that we have taken up over the years. You've gone through so much experiences. You've gone to uni, you've gone to secondary school, you went to university, you got your first degree, you got your second degree, you may even have a PhD, you've worked in, several organizations. But yet that software about what a relationship should look like, or the lessons you learned about relationships growing up, has not been updated. It has not had any impact on the growth in other areas of your life that you have done over the years. As far as that one is concerned, yeah, you're like, this one is sacrosanct, nothing can touch it. And then you get into a relationship and things begin to go left and south. So the good news today, as we wrap up this live, the good news is that these softwares can be updated. The software updates, they exist. And of course, it will depend on what the software is that will determine what update we give to it. But generally speaking, the first software update that is available to everybody is to find healing. Is to find healing. Whatever it is that you might have gone through growing up, whatever you may have been exposed to, whatever difficulties, whatever lies you may have been told, whatever might have been said to you that has caused an incongruence within you. And when I say incongruence, is that within you, you feel like I should be able to achieve this thing. I should be able to do this for myself. But you wake up every day and the ability to do and the desire to do don't align. That's incongruence. You see yourself being the CEO of a conglomerate. You see it, you desire it, but you wake up every day and your job is that you are being a cleaner. That's incongruence. But there's healing to be found because maybe you grew up in a home where they told you nobody in this family has ever owned a business. You can't own your business. Nobody in this family has graduated from university. You cannot go to college. Nobody in this family has come out with a 2-1 or a first class. So you cannot do it. You've been told over the years that nobody has done it before now. So you cannot be the first. And my question to you today is why not? Why can't you be the first? Why can't you do it? So healing is available, my friends. First and foremost, you need to even become aware that there's a challenge. Become aware that there's a problem because you cannot change what you don't notice. So as you go out through this week, I want you to sit back and begin to look at some of the things that you're doing today that may just be some of the unhealthy practices you're doing. Of course, it's not all about everything we do, it's about the unhealthy practices that we engage in. Some of those unhealthy practices that you engage in as a person and in your relationships, in your friendships, even with your colleagues, because it's a sum total of who you are. It's not just about the intimate relationships, it's also about, whatever relationship and friendship you find yourself in. Those are the things that would actually show how you would show in your intimate relationship. So ask yourself this week, what are some of those things that I'm doing in my relationship or in my life? What are some of those things I see myself doing over and over again that are unhealthy? But I can't stop it. I have trust issues. I'm not able to believe people when they speak. I don't think I'm good enough to achieve anything within the office. Your boss looks at you and sees potential in you and sees that you might be able to rise up the ranks, but you have told yourself that no, I can't. Sit back today and I want you to write out some of those unhealthy things that you're doing and know that you can find healing. And healing always starts from the awareness. Healing always starts from being able to identify what those things are. And when you begin to identify them, then we can begin to look at those things one after the other. These my life shows really are supposed to be a teaser to some of these topics, you know. And at the webinar, we're going to look a lot more into some of these things, leading on to a program for people to be able to go through a whole journey. And when I say whole, it's an acronym WHOLE, where we become wholesome. We're able to own the places where we are at the moment. We grow our ability to love. We become healthy individuals and we evolve to become the best versions of ourselves so that we can do relationships right, do relationships better, so that we can begin to reduce the statistics of broken marriages. Guys, that's my heart cry, is that we reduce the statistics of broken marriages because there's a right way that marriage can be done. And that's why we're here. So please do that this week. In your diary, in your free time, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, begin to note down some of those patterns, some of those things that you think you're beginning to do that are unhealthy. and they are not helping you. You've had a few people that have complained about it. You yourself, you know that this thing is not helping you to become better. Begin to write them down. And then when you have written them down, I want you to send me a DM about them. Send me a DM with that list and let's look at it together. I hope you do that. I look forward to hearing from you. Please follow our page on YouTube, like it, share it with all your friends, share this live video with people who you think will be blessed by it. We really appreciate it. Liking our videos and sharing it with people helps us to be able to bring you more and more content so that you'll be the first person to see it. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, or for anybody who's going to be watching this after tonight. I'm really, really grateful for you, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you. It's me, your friend Moduni. I honor you and I love you. Bye for now.